Hey there. Welcome to Alive Inside the Radiantly Alive Woman. It has been a long while since I have been here giving you live content. So thank you for being here. And I'm so happy to be back and offering our lives twice a week. So we had a busy month of August. We had a retreat. We were doing our Choose Your Scar retreat, which many of you attended and found great information about scars and how to start working your scars. And then I made a move to Costa Rica. And so I am just now settled. As I look out in front of me, I see the ocean and nature and all the things, all the animals. It's really beautiful. So I feel much more settled and at home here, and I'm very happy to just return. So thank you all for being here. Hello, Donna. Thank you for being live. Today we are headed back into our track. So inside this Facebook group, you have seen an announcement thread. It's at the top of the announcements, and it is a place for where you can start putting down scars that you're interested in. So if you have a scar on your body that you want to know more about, pop it in that thread and I will get to it. I'm knocking them off one by one. We have over 100 women commenting in there already. So it's really great to just be giving this. And if I have gone over it already, I will link you up to a YouTube link so you can find it and access that really easily. Today we're going into jaw and chin scars. I've done a few head scars, but they're a common place to hurt yourself. They're a common area where we have bumps and bruises. And so today we're going into jaw and chin. We've done a forehead one, we've done a nose one. There's going to be many more to come. Back of the noggin, back of the head should be another one. And we're going to really focus in on jaw, chin, and I'm going to touch on dental work a little bit because that's also something to consider. It's a huge topic, but I'll just touch on it briefly and help you to kind of see how maybe the stuff that's gone on in your mouth could be linked to some of the things that you're feeling and experiencing. So all of the time in these videos, I go over 3 different sections. I have our physical considerations, what I want you to really think about in relation to your body that you're experiencing and how it could be related to your scar that you have in this video, chin/jaw. So I'm going to touch on common symptoms that you have physically, as well as just ways to view the body a little bit more full. I want you to start thinking like I think. I want you to think like a clinical therapist and have a big kind of view on how the jaw and chin is actually hooked up and into the body. The more we can see ourselves as integrated, the more we can see ourselves as connected. This is really helpful for your own healing journey. So we're going to set that up really well with the physical, as well as the emotional and the energetic. This is our second topic that I always touch on. I always touch on it second because I want to really come from a foundational, grounded base of the physical, tangible kind of world where it's easy to see, a little bit easier to relate to. The emotion and the energy is potentially a little bit more challenging. It's going to need to be a place where you sink into it on your own. You're going to need to see like, how does this suit me? How does this fit for me? Because every woman has a unique story related to every single scar, in particular this one. No 2 women are going to have the same scar, and no 2 women are going to have the same incident that created the scar. So we want to think about ourselves. There's a uniqueness to scar work that really needs to be brought out, and this kind of starts to really make that very clear. I'm going to also give a roadmap out on how you can start to trace the energy and the emotion in a way that's a little bit more clear, instead of it maybe being a little bit more abstract and potentially confusing. The third part is what we always do is what to do with this scar. What to do with this scar in particular. I always touch on one thing that you should be doing with all scars, and then I'm going to give you one thing that you can start doing today for your jaw scar as a preliminary kind of starting point. So at any point, if you have any questions, I love questions. It actually helps create the lives be a little bit more full, a little bit more fun. So if you have questions about your own body, about your own jaw or chin scar, something about your teeth, please just feel free to ask the question. It's nice and it creates, again, like a little bit more of a full picture. It's easier when I can talk to a person specifically instead of giving like a general overview, which I usually do in these videos. So please, anytime, if you're watching live, awesome. If you're watching on the replay, send it in. It's all good and useful. So the chin jaw is something that you may have had when you were little. It's very common for us to, for example, like go over the handlebars when we're young and like nick our chin, trip and fall and just kind of catch our chin places. And later on in our life, that's very applicable as well. Things are slippery. Whatever happens, it's really common to have jaw, chin scars. There's also things that could happen in the area like dental work. I've worked with people who have gland issues, like gland issues in the chin, kind of jaw area. All of that is fair game. Abscesses that you may have had from wisdom teeth removal, all that is fair game. And I'm going to try to bring as much information about that as I can. So if you have heard some of these, yeah, mole removal on your face, chin, that is perfect as well. All of that plays into this. This all is in this video. So I want to just first highlight the importance of the jaw. It's so important and it is used so often. And it's also an area where you can get really clued into how tense someone is, like what's their general state. So we are talking, we're eating, we're sleeping, we're always using our jaw. And so it is commonly a place of discomfort. TMJ is a common thing. And we want to be aware of like maybe like what's causing that? Like how did that begin? Maybe you can start to think about that as related to your chin scars. Yeah, grinding your teeth, so common. Everyone seems to grind their teeth these days. And we want to think about that in a really smart way. So what is causing that? A lot of people, for example, grind the teeth because you've just mentioned it, and then we just put a brace in, and that's about all that we do. We want to learn more about ourselves. We want to give ourselves more credit. We want to discover what could be the meaning behind this. And I'm going to highlight two different body strips of tissue that will help you to see where it could be coming from. Because there's a period, usually because of high amounts of stress, but it could be because of injury in the area or away from it, that we create that circumstance to start grinding our teeth. So we want to figure all of that out. Dental work plays into it. I think that dental work is something that we kind of assume is normal, and once we get the dental work done, all is good. It has the same kind of vibe of when we get a cast on. Like if we break a bone, we get the cast off, everything's all good. We kind of miss the point of like integrating that area back in and making sure that it is okay and that it is healed beyond just the minimal standard, which is the minimal standard is the bone is healed, take the cast off, good to go. But we want to be better than that. We want to provide our body with a more integrated kind of full approach to health and well-being. So these two body strips, I'll talk about those first since I just touched on them. I like telling you about these they're fascial trains actually, because it helps the visual people, helps them like see themselves in a more clear light. So Thomas Myers is a man that you want to look up. If you look up in Google Images and you want to get geeky with me right now, look up Thomas Myers. You're going to look up two different things if you want. Thomas Myers, superficial front line. Thomas Myers, superficial front line. And then the other one that you can look up is Thomas Myers deep front line. Okay, so what these two images are going to come up on Google is there are these beautiful blue blue anatomy strips of tissue where it shows you how the body is connected from like tip to tail, literally from like the top of your head all the way down to your feet. And this helps us link and connect dots. So jaw or grinding the teeth is not just an isolated incident. Grinding the teeth is very much connected to a lack of control and connection to the internal core of our body. So if you have a pelvic floor thing going on, for example, like incontinence, you feel a lot of women have this sense that feels like their organs are going to fall out if you've ever given birth. There feels like there's a lack of tone, a lack of connection there. That is the same strip of tissue. If you're looking at that second one, deep front line, it's the same strip of tissue that goes from the kind of deep core of the hips of the pelvic floor. It lines our spinal column. It connects to muscles like our psoas, goes in through our diaphragm, comes up through the deep core of our neck, and then it actually finishes in the jaw, which is super cool to see. So if you have problems breathing, if you feel like you get panicked easily, or you can't really control your breath when you get stressed, you notice that there's this like anxiety thing that comes over you, all of these things can be connected, which is super important for you to figure out and feel in your own body. Because again, it's not like you have 100 things going on. You can start narrowing it down into like one or two different problems. And the great thing about that is that once you find like the culprit, once you have the main thing going on, you know what is causing it, the origin of it, then you just go after the origin. So you don't have to feel like you're this lifelong project of trying to fix everything. That's very far from the truth. If you just find the core, the root of it, you can start to work that to fully resolve that. And all that noise, all that jaw grinding, all that pelvic floor dysfunction, the breathing problems, the anxiety, all of that will start to tone down and calm down and resolve because you've gone towards the source, towards the culprit of the whole issue. So that is the first blue man I want you to look at. It's probably my favorite one when we're talking about the jaw. It's the jaw is part of our deepest, it's really part of our deepest line, like the core of our anatomy closest to our center. That's very related to jaw and to the deep line. Now, the superficial front line is basically the exact opposite. It's superficial, meaning like closest to the surface, and it's coming up the whole front of the body. The reason why I wanted to highlight that is because it includes these muscles. There are these like massive muscles here. They're called your sternocleidomastoid, which is like a really ridiculous name. Also just call it your SCM. And it's attached into the behind the ear and into your collarbone. And you'll see that strip of tissue run down the front of the body, run down into the core, quads, shins, all the way to the tops of the feet. So I'm talking about like toe pain, foot pain, shin splints, anything going on with your knees, stuff that's going on if you feel tightness or whatever in your hips. Core, oblique, kind of ab stuff is all in there as well. Stuff going on with the chest. And then again, because we're crossing here, we're talking about breathing. These muscles are attached into our collarbones. Collarbones have a very specific movement in our breathing pattern, and often when we're prone to stress, when we're prone to being revved up, we don't breathe low anymore. We start to breathe really high, and a lot of these muscles start to take on a life of their own, and it creates a lot of tension here, like crazy amounts of tension, and it could also just start setting off like ear problems, jaw problems, TMJ problems. All of this is they're related. They're part of the same game. So I hope that those blue men help you to just really visualize what's going on. So when I'm thinking, I'm connecting these dots like bing, 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 like really quickly in my head. And it's how I can get from one problem into a different area really quickly. But you can do the same thing, and these blue men or women, these blue anatomy guys can help you to see that clearly. So I hope that that's helpful. Yeah, super tight. This whole area, when you have jaw chin scars, is going to be tight. It's going to be constricted because your body is struggling to move an area of the body that is really pivotal to just basic function. Like I said, breathing, talking, sleeping. We need this area to be functioning well. And when there's a scar on top of it, the way that I teach is that whenever there's a scar somewhere, whatever's near, whatever's underlying cannot function optimally. It's not to say that it's not working at all. It's very rare that it's not working at all. It's just not at all cylinders. It's not functioning at 100%. It's more like whatever, 60, 20, 75. It depends on the person and what else is going on in their body. But I want you to just start to see how important this area is. And when it's not working well, the kind of spiral effect that can go through. Other physical things, because this area is on our face, you may have problems with swelling and inflammation, just having trouble like ridding stuff from your mouth, meaning like you're prone to high bacteria, abscesses that I was talking about. This is really common. Very common to have ear stuff, too much wax in the ear, like buildup of wax, or having trouble just having clear, open ears. Fluid, swelling, all in this area, fair game. The jaw is like closely related and connected to the tongue, and we're talking about cranial nerves in the head. There's 12 cranial nerves. They're all in the head, with the exception of these two muscles here that are attached and plugged into cranial nerves. They're the only two muscles in the body, your SCM, your upper trap. Otherwise, all of these cranial nerves are functioning and helping your senses, meaning like your sight, your smell, your taste, your hearing, touch, as well as just moving all the facial muscles. So when your cranial nerves are not functioning well, it's not so great, because those are the only nerves in our body that are directly plugged into our brainstem and our brain. All the other nerves in our body come from our spinal column and spread out. So we want to make sure that this is all functioning really well, because that is just really hard on the body. It's really challenging when anything in the cranium, like anything in here, is not functioning very well. You're going to know about it. Yeah, if all your senses are really sensitive, that's like a tongue twister, that is a good thing to know. Like if you find you're challenged with bright light, your smell is maybe not so good. Your ears can get have too much wax in them or get easily infected. When you go swimming, they're easily irritated. All of this stuff you want to know about, because it could be related to the scar that you have on your chin. Like I said, I've worked with lots of women who have gland problems here. So problems with the glands, like huge scarring on their cheeks, as well as women who've just had things removed. And it impacts the body significantly when you start working on those scars. So the first thing I want you to do for the physical is pay attention to all the stuff I just noted, and like start making like little checks. Like, is that me? Do I have that? Do I have that? And also I'm just scanning generally. So if there's other things that that are irritated on your face, on your upper chest, even like some of the other things I spoke about, pelvic floor, all of these things, we want to know about them so that you can start to trace them back to your scar. Yeah, sensitivity to light and to loud sounds. Awesome. So these are all important. And when you know all your symptomology, when you're like really real and direct with yourself, you have all the info you need. When you start working your scar, you should potentially notice change. There's a few other steps in here that I help women figure out, like which symptoms are actually related to the scars. But in general, the more you know yourself, the better you are. So keep going on that kind of train of recognizing all of the symptoms and what's going on. Okay, so I spoke about all of the things that I think I wanted to in the physical. Let's just talk about one other neurological thing, a reflex that's programmed in our body. I've spoken about this before. Let's talk about it again. Sorry, I'm just watching a beautiful bird, a vulture, like moving around in front of me. So this neurological reflex is in our body innately. It's a safety mechanism, and depending on how you got hit in the jaw, this is mostly for like people who've like fallen on their face, like fallen flat on their face, or like tripped and like did one of these where you hit your jaw. There's a neurological reflex that happens that's been there forever, and I'll just describe it to you because it's really interesting, and it could also help to highlight some other things that are going on. I used to call this the Rake Effect. So if you're walking through the woods and it's like, it's autumn, it's fall, there's all these like old leaves and you can't see what's in front of you, and all of a sudden you walk on a rake, and the rake, you step on the rake, and then all of a sudden the handlebar comes like flying at your face. There's a natural, very quick neurological reflex that will immediately, it's going to do two things. It's going to put a ton of tension into the back of the body so you can contract and pull away. So the whole like extensor chain, also called the posterior chain, just all the stuff in the back of the body that helps you to extend and pull away, all of that will, in a flash, immediately become active to make sure that you don't hit yourself in the face. Because like I said, cranial nerves, cranium, vault, very important. All the senses, we need them to be healthy and comfortable. So that's one thing that happens. The other thing, potentially the more interesting thing, if you want to think about your own body, is everything in the front will go weak. Everything in that superficial front line, that blue man that I showed you or asked you to Google, the superficial front line muscles, all the muscles that are in the front of the body, those will all weaken. Also called, they'll inhibit. Meaning if all the back muscles and all the front muscles like contracted equally just as hard, you'd go nowhere. So you want to contract the back muscles and soften all the front muscles so you have this really quick reaction that's hardwired in our body to make sure you don't get hit in the face with a rake handle. So this is what I want you to think about in relation to what's going on in the front, because a lot of women complain of having really weak cores when they have jaw, chin, dental work stuff. So just think about that in your body. How do you feel in your core? How does it feel to you? And think about that rake effect. When we have that neurological reflex, it should reset. It's like a thing that just resets instantly, and like you're good to go. If the trauma has been significant, and there's a bunch of different factors of how it could be significant enough, but if that is significant enough, that reflex kind of gets stuck. It doesn't get the opportunity to reset. So you may have a lot of tightness in the back of the body, meaning chronic tension headaches, tight hamstrings, sore, vulnerable low back, plantar fasciitis. All of these things could be going on in the back of the body, and you could feel like a weakening in the front. You could feel tight hips, weak core, your neck muscles aren't very strong. You feel like you got like that forward head posture thing going. This could be because of that very common for jaw, chin stuff. But this is mostly for like the wax to the face. This is less likely for surgeries, for example, if you've had dental or any kind of like surgery through here. All right, so I think that that's what I want to talk about for the physical. I'm just looking at my notes here. And then for the emotional and energetic, let's just talk about the obvious. I said at the very beginning of the video, this area is a really good way to view how much tension people have in their body in a day-to-day. We do a lot of like Zoom calls these days, and we can like see people directly, like just their face, and we can kind of like stare at them really closely. And it's really obvious when people have a lot of tension in their face, in the jaw, and in the neck. It's also really obvious when they are breathing poorly. Like you can see people who are breathing and they're like doing a lot of this. There's a lot of tension going through their body, and you'll see it. Maybe they have really tight, you can see it tight around in here, or you can just see a lot of like clenching. Or just when they're just, listening to you, they have a tightness in their jaw. They look like they're like a little hard and a little rigid. You want to pay attention to that in yourself. So don't go analyzing everyone else. That's not very kind. Think about it as yourself, but use it as a tool. You can check yourself out as just like a little like awareness practice and be like, "Whew, you need to like calm down and take it easy. Like, breathe down into your belly, breathe into your abdomen, relax your mouth." All of these things are really helpful. You don't need to be clenching your jaw listening to someone. So when we have a lot of tension that's just stuck here, our energy can't really move. It gets clogged, it gets bunchy, it doesn't have that dynamic kind of movement that it should. And that over time creates challenge. You'll feel it potentially as tension in your body, but you'll also feel it as like tension in your mind or in your thinking. If you have tension in your physical body, your emotion, your energy, your thought pattern is probably not so far off from being tight as well. So I want you to just view that as an idea as well. When you have a poor ability to breathe well, you may be more prone to things like anxieties or just a worrier. Or when you get really stressed out, you stress out easily and you have trouble bringing yourself down. Like maybe you are prone to that kind of like whirlwind thing when stuff just like gets blown out of proportion really quickly and your head and mind are like pinging to worst case. This could be common with tension that is in this area. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in here is just a simple awareness practice of just assessing how tight you are in here. I'll talk about it in more detail in this third part here, but just really paying attention to that. Noticing if you chew on one side more than the other is a really interesting thing to do as well. Now, just in the energy and the emotion, let's talk about dental work briefly, because I said I was going to talk about dental work. If anyone's interested, I can share something with them for just, anatomy kind of geeking out. But there's been people who have mapped the teeth to organ function, to parts of the spine, the spinal vertebrae, if they're functioning or not, to different energetic kind of patterns and feelings. Meaning, like if you're chronically prone to having like infection in a part, or if you had like a ton of issues with one area that ended up leading to a tooth removal or some other type of dental work, you could look into that and see how it's related and connected to your body. The person who's done this, his name is Paul Chek. If you want to look up Paul Chek, Chek, he started out in strength and conditioning, but then moved into a kind of more grand scope of human reflexes, more like esoteric type stuff, and he's a really cool resource. The quality of his information is amazing. There's just so much you can see on that. So each tooth is plugged into a certain section of the body. I've worked with people who've had dental work and they're experiencing shingles, like shingles right now, and you can resolve their shingles by working through the teeth, the jaw, and the dental work, which is really cool. The way that these jaw, mouth kind of muscles work, the way that we move our jaw and mouth when we talk is very integrated and related to the muscles in the suboccipital area, the small muscles in the base of the skull. the body is going to try to make sure that your eyes are on the horizon. So I say that as a term, meaning like your eyes are level with the ground all the time. If your eyes were not level with the ground all the time and you were just kind of bobbling about, you would be very nauseous and dizzy and uncomfortable. And that would just give you a huge spin of your energy. So our body, which is has like a gyroscope, is in the jaw as well as in the back of the head. So we want to know about the scarring, how it's pulling tension and keeping us stuck in places in the jaw. And it's also very common to have like chronic tension headaches, really challenge with their energy and their emotion, and kind of like um, feeling dizzy, blurry vision, those types of things. The other thing I want to talk about with the emotion and the energy is the roadmap. The roadmap is something I talk about with every single section. This section, we want to think about this in 3 different phases. The energy and the emotion is not just one particular thing. I want you to think about it in 3 different sections. So think about your event. Maybe there's one, maybe there's many around the jaw and chin. And I want you to think about each one in these 3 different sections of before the event or surgery, whatever it was, the during the surgery or the event itself, and then after. This helps you to get a little bit more clear around what it is that we're actually talking about when we're talking about emotion and energy, because it can seem kind of abstract when we're just talking about it like this. For example, people have had surgery in their glands. They're struggling to eat. They feel self-conscious about how they look. They feel like they don't have a sense of taste. They're constantly worried about like fluid in their mouth, so they're very conscious of eating out in public. So all of this has an emotion, has an energy. There's a strain on the body that's being created because of this problem. So that's the before, as an example. There's a lot of different versions, but let's just run with this for a moment. Then there's the during, the surgery itself. Let's say you have to scrape away some of your salivary gland. Maybe they remove some of it. Whatever happens, there's a surgery that happens. As a general rule of thumb, whenever you've had a surgery or just an accident, if you banged your chin, there's a level of fear involved in that because surgeries are scary. They're reading you a list of things that could happen, rightfully so, but that list is totally freaky. And like when we're doing surgery on the face and on the jaw, the neck area, there's a lot of dangerous potential things that could go on. And so there's an element of fear all the time with surgery. Other things that I want you to think about with surgery, or like if you went to the hospital because of this or any of that, there's always going to be like relationship dynamics. There's relationship dynamics between you and the medical staff. A lot of people feel like, in the heat of the moment, when stuff is you're scared, you're unsure, you don't really know what's going on. There's a sense of like hospital workers not taking care in you, even if they had the greatest level of care and they wanted to make sure that you were comfortable. Maybe you didn't feel that. And so that can get stored up into the scar as well as relationship dynamics with whoever was taking care of you, spouse, friend, your children, whatever. Did you feel like they didn't, think of you in this certain way, or whatever is held emotionally? This is a really common thing when people start thinking about their hospital visit. There's a lot of like held resentment in the way that you were treated in that phase, because you're totally freaked out, I'm sure, deep down. If you really get into it, what's the cause of that? It's usually fear. So that's the during, and then the after. The after is a longer phase. It's anything between the healing process to right now. So what's your inner dialogue? Like, what do you feel since that? Do you have trouble chewing, eating, talking, sleeping? Are you grinding? Are you, not restful because you're not sleeping well? All of these things, like, how are they playing into your energy? Meaning, like, you don't sleep well. If we all know, if you're not sleeping well, you don't feel good. There's all these things that spiral when you're not sleeping well, you're not doing the basics. All of that stuff needs to be taken into account, because when you start working this scar, you're going to start noticing huge changes in these areas. It can be really incredible, but when we're really aware of all the stuff that we're feeling or going through on a day-to-day, and then you start getting into the scar work, it's really a robust experience, because then you're able to really like witness your own change and healing as you're doing it, like in present time. It's really empowering and awesome. So that's the emotion and energetic kind of roadmap that I give everyone, those 3 sections. Please do that with every single scar that you have, but definitely with these chin jaw scars. All right. Now, the best part, the fun part, the what to do. What to do with your chin slash jaw scar. This part is really important to me because I feel like right now in the world, we're all, absorbing tons of information. We're getting a lot of knowledge, but we aren't really taking actionable steps. And we want to make sure that we have a plan moving forward and that we actually take action. It's great to learn and to know stuff, but knowing is only so great. It only goes so far. You need to actually put things into practice and explore. And so I always give a first step. This first step is preliminary. There's a lot more that you can do, but it gives you a foundational kind of beginning, like an entrance into a feeling into this area and the healing potential that's there. So I always say the exact same practice for every single scar. So I'm just going to touch over or go over it really quickly because you can't skip over this step. It's really important that you don't. If you do, you may catch yourself off guard because right now you may or may not know, but usually may not know how impactful scars can be in your own transformation. So if you skip over this, you may catch yourself in a very emotional experience, a big physical experience, something that you didn't even really know was possible just by moving or touching or doing something with your scar. So please take the care, respect your timeline, respect your body, respect and honor that you want to go through a process and that you want to do it not bigger, harder, faster, stronger, sexier like modern world is into, but you want to actually do it in a way that's really full and caring and just tender to you. So the three-part practice, there's three parts. The first one is just the relaxing into. Every scar needs this attention. The relaxing into is important. Set yourself up in a place where you're comfortable. Maybe it's your living room, maybe it's your bedroom, wherever it is, be comfortable. You can sit or lay, whatever you want to do, however you're most comfortable. You want to make skin to skin contact with the area, with the scar. So hand to skin. And this part's important. I want you to activate the sense of touch in a way that's meaningful, meaning you're not just touching yourself in the way that you would put on makeup or clothing or lotion or whatever. I want you to, have a moment with yourself and say, like, I'm about to touch into something that I may not have been aware of as important, or I may be consciously or unconsciously avoiding it or whatever, but you want to really meaningfully connect in and have that sense of, I'm about to do something and I want to connect with my body and see what naturally comes. So activating the sense of touch. Okay, skin to skin. Close your eyes. Okay, so that's the relaxing into. Now the second part is the physical. I want you to gather as many physical qualities as you can. Gather it all up as information. I want you to feel into a few things. Feel into your own comfort level of touching it. Is there an aversion? Lots of people who touch stuff on their face, it's really common because it is so plugged into our cranial nerves, into like our senses. It's very common for people to feel nauseous, feel just a big aversion, feel sick, feel dizzy. This is all normal. The jaw, like I said, has its own little gyroscope to help us feel balanced and like, eyes on the horizon, not dizzy, not blurry. So touching this area, touching the scar could start to trigger some things. So you want to be aware of that. Feeling into like sensation, numbness, heightened, like altered sensation. Things are really sensitive, things are super numb. All of that in the spectrum, feel that. And then because the chin is pretty accessible, or the jaw is pretty accessible, I want you to feel areas of like tension. Meaning like if you push on this scar, do you feel areas that it is, challenged to go in a direction? You feel pulling, you feel stuckness, you feel stickiness, whatever's going on. If you've heard me talk about scars, I'd like to describe them as a Spider-Man's web. There's this webbing that's looking for bone. Bone here is really accessible, so it's usually pretty easy to feel. You may feel like little balls of gum in this area, and you may feel that it's stuck in some places, so you want to explore that. So gather as much as you can. Feel where the skin is like being pulled out, feel where the skin is getting stuck in. Gather physical as much as you can. And then the third part that I want you to do is feel into those energetic and emotions that are there. Feel into how it feels. Feel into the situation. Maybe you were riding a bike when you were really young, trying to catch up with your sibling, and you couldn't quite catch up with them, and you just biffed it into the ground, and you just did a face plant into the ground. And so, what's the emotion behind that? Like, what's the kind of raw energy behind the circumstance? What's there? Before, during, after, ideal. Once you have that, then you have a road, you have a starting place. You're kind of mapping. You know the potential that's there. When you feel emotion, when you feel physical stuckness, when you feel like anything, you know that there's a potential to change it. It's like you just landed on a gold mine. You just recognize like, oh, this could be related to that. Or like, oh yeah, I could feel how like that's really stuck. And I could see through those blue anatomy figures how stuckness here could create tension and pulling elsewhere in my body. You're starting to have these like ping, ping, ping moments, which is really nice and really helpful. All right, so what can you do for this area specifically? I want you to use this technique specifically for the jaw slash chin, and don't apply this technique anywhere else in the body. I'm choosing this for the jaw right now for a specific reason. If you were to take this technique and apply it to like your C-section scar, for example, or any other type of scar, it may not be the right one. I actually really don't think you should do it on any of your abdominal scars. It would be the wrong order, bad timing. So please just do this for where we're talking about in the jaw and chin. Be really mindful that scars are a big deal. Scars matter. Every scar has a story, and you want to be respectful to the order that you're doing things. So in my system, Scars Reigniting Your Feminine, we have 6 body practices, one of which is manual scar work. And this area is a really good place for you to do manual scar work. A couple of reasons for that being is you usually have a really good felt sense of what's going on. It's pretty easy to feel because the bone is like, right there. So it's a really easy way to feel what's going on in the area. It's also really easy because you can like look at yourself in the mirror too as just a little aided technique. So you can kind of get the sense of touch and vision in what you're doing, where sometimes it's a little bit hard to like pull yourself up and watch yourself in the mirror what you're doing. So this is a good time to use some manual scar work. And I do have a couple caveats for that. You're going to apply very light touch to this area. I mean like very light. So if we have like a kind of whatever this is, a scale of very light to hard, I want you to go like level 1. Okay, level 1 to 5. 5 is very hard. Be as light as you can with your touch. This area, the head and face is very vascular. There's a lot of circulation, there's a lot of lymphatic, and if you push too hard, you're doing yourself a disservice. The lighter you touch your face, the better. You'll be able to feel more. It'll be more beneficial. It's a lot kinder. You don't want to be like pushing and pulling with a lot of intensity because, like I said, this area is plugged into a really crucial place and you want to be mindful of that. So I want you to do this a very simple skin drag technique. This is one of the things that I teach women in this certain type of progression, and we're going to go right into skin dragging. So how we do it, you're gonna always take at least 2, maybe 3 fingers, depending on like the size of what it is. Don't just do one. One finger is like really pokey proddy, kind of intense, not really necessary. When you have more fingers, you can divvy up like the placement of your weight and of your pressure, and it feels more comfortable. You don't want to be like, science experimenting yourself and pokey proddy and trying to release muscle. A lot of the time when we put our hands on our body, we think that we're doing like a muscle release and we need to push as hard as possible. I'm telling you that's definitely not what we're doing. We're doing a very gentle skin drag that helps the lymphatic system, helps the circulatory system, and really improves the way that this area is kind of interacting with everything else. Skin drag means like just move in one single direction, like one plane. Depending on how your scar is, you may be choosing just the horizontal plane. This is probably like more of the common one. So don't make like an X, don't make a triangle or like an X, or don't do any of that. Just choose one plane. Maybe it's horizontal, maybe it's vertical. It can be oblique, like depending on like where the scar is and what you're doing, but just choose a single plane. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna make, let me do it here so you can see better. You're gonna make gentle contact with the skin. So not just touching like the little fuzz on your skin, like the little bit of hair, but just pushing a little bit harder than that. You're not pressing and trying to feel, the bone. If you're really pushing, you feel the bone already, you're pushing way too hard. Very gentle, light touch on the scale of 1 to 5, you're doing 1. Then you're gonna skin drag across that one direction. So you're keeping the light, maintain the light pressure, and skin drag in one direction. So in an area where the skin moves really well, I don't think you can see this. Usually I like draw a Sharpie on my hand, but where the skin moves well, you'll feel like the skin drags considerably, like it follows your movement. When you have a scar somewhere, that doesn't happen. The skin drag is not very clean. It's kind of sticky. It's kind of boggy. It's not so nice. So you're going to do that skin drag and hold it, light touch. You're not pushing at any point. You're going to hold it for at least 30 seconds. Because your hands are not trained, you may feel like that's tiring, but if you do this often, you'll increase some stamina and it'll be fine. Okay, once you have done the 30 seconds, you just pick up your hand. So you just pick it up and let the skin kind of gently kind of shoot back into where it had been, into its like normal neutral place, wherever that scarring is, okay? So you've gone 30 seconds in one direction, pick it up, then you're gonna go back into the scar, go in the opposite, like 180 in the opposite direction, skin drag, 30 seconds, pick up the fingers and let the skin just kind of push back. Okay, by doing this, it's going to start to, like I said, improve a lot of things around the scarring. It's also going to give you a huge boost of confidence building and relationship building with the area. Meaning the more you touch your scar, the more you're going to feel where it's stuck, where it's not working, where it's not moving, where there's things that are going on there. You'll get you'll be able to feel the discrepancy of this is hard, this is soft, this is really hard. All this will kind of come to light the more you actually touch. Again, the harder you push, the less information you get. The lighter you touch, the better it goes. So I think that is a really good start for your jaw. Make sure when you're doing it, you're not squeezing your mouth, you're not tensing, you're not, you're gripping. There's a lot of softness here. This is about allowing movement. So wherever there's tension in your body, tone it down. Let go of the tension. Breathe into your belly while you're doing it. Smooth, slow, steady breathing. Okay, so I think that's all I want to say. If anyone has any questions, I'm just going to peek at my notes here. I think that's the goodness of what I wanted to cover. And then if at any point you are, you tried or you are, thinking about it and a question comes later, please feel free to hop back inside this thread and ask me then. I'm very happy to answer your questions anytime. It's important to me that you know what you're doing and that you feel like you have the confidence to move forward. Thank you for being here and joining me. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, Donna, and that it was interesting. We're going to do another live tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Good question. How often do you do this exercise? What you want to do is do literally no more than what I showed you. So that should be like a 90-second whole kit and caboodle done. And then you can do that at least once a day, but you can do it twice, and I wouldn't do it any more than that as a beginning. You can increase over time, but you really want to be present with like the impact on what that scar has. The more you know how impactful that scar is, the more you can kind of tweak your frequency. So do it once a day for now and twice if you would like. Try to space them out, like do it in the beginning of your day and near the end of your day so that you have some space so your body can like absorb and move stuff around, like absorb the goodness that you've done, really benefit from that. So thanks for your question. And I will see you tomorrow for another live. Hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, I will send a teeth map, dental map to anyone who is interested. All right, see you soon.